Hello everyone, welcome back. Today is part 1 of 2 on a series of lectures where we're going to revisit the parts ordering application. That we'll do is we'll add our new worksheet controls to it, and we'll add a couple of new features so that it makes it look more professional. Before we get rolling with that though, we will make sure that you tried the problems I assigned last lecture. We'll go through the solutions and use that as our starting point. All right, so at the end of the last lecture, I left you with a couple of exercises to try. They review the input box, they review this new worksheet controls, the list box in particular, and how to use VLOOKUP within VBA. Now, I won't insult your intelligence and read through the problem again. We'll just pop up the solutions and work through them. Here's the first problem in its purest form before we actually add our VBA code to it. So we're going to work out membership fees for a fit club. And you will first of all choose one of these options to say the optional things you want to do at the club. And then you will, through an input box, ask the person whether they are a single or a family. And with that knowledge, we are going to work out the total monthly fee. Okay, here's the solution. We'll click on 1, nothing happens. I need a double click event. Okay, so we'll double click and then I'll type in F for family and press OK, and it changes its value to $80 for a family membership. Okay, with a 1, which is tennis. So 65 and 15 is 80. So it works. Okay, let's take a look at the code. Let's set up our tables first, make sure we understand what everything is. So if you ever forget, what did I call that table? What did I call that table? You can always click on Formulas, Name Manager. So this table here I called Membership. This table down here I called Options. Now let's focus over here, and it's not allowing me to modify it. So do you remember how to fix that? If we go to Developer, actually we'll go to Review, and we'll unprotect the cell. Then we'll go to Developer, and we'll go into Design Mode, and there we now have access to it. We'll click on some properties. I called this List Options. And the list fill, it just hand coded it G9 to G12. Okay, so here's G9 to G12. Next, let's go into the underground and look at the code. So here's the variables. We're going to need to know the type. Is it a family or a single membership? And then we're going to keep track of the amount that that's going to cost. Then we're going to keep track of the amount for the optional things that you can get. And then we're going to add those two together to get our grand total. And of course, we also have to track our sheet. Okay, we'll set the sheet equal to the monthly fee worksheet. And we're into this protect and unprotect type thing now. So I turn the protection off the sheet so I can get in there and change some numbers. And then I'll turn it back on at the very end. Okay, as soon as we double click on the list box, the first thing that pops up is the input box. Then with that knowledge, I'm going to perform a VLOOKUP. I'm going to send it the family or single, and I'm going to look for it in the membership. When I find it, I'm going to go to column number 3. If you forget why, remember, this is the column we're going to be in, so $30 or $65. Back to the code. So now, another lookup. Okay, this time, when we double-clicked on the list box, we knew what we were clicking on. So what this is going to do here now is now look at val of whatever was in that, because the list boxes only has a text property, and since we're going to be looking up a number, we're going to take the quotes off of that and then search for it in the options. And again, we'll go over to the third column, and now we've got our current options and current membership. Those two numbers are going to get added together, and there's our total. And just for informational purposes, we store the type of membership, family or single, into location B3. And then here's a neat command. We store the total in currency format in that cell location B4. Now you might say, well, what if it was already formatted as currency? It might have been. This will guarantee that it is in currency when you do it in pure code. Okay, so there's the first solution. And again, we'll run it one more time. This time, oh, now look at, I'm in editing mode still. I'll press design mode. Now we can double click on that. So I'm picking option 3, and this time I'll stick with single, and $70 for that. Okay, so there's the first solution. Now this second exercise problem really isn't a worksheet forms type thing. It's strictly an input box type problem where you are going to ask for the model number, and then depending on whether it's retail or educational, we're going to take this price or this price. Okay, here's a quick run of the macro. Now this one didn't ask you to put a button in there, but I don't like going to the developer and run the macro. I'd like to have a button activate something, right? So we'll press it. It's going to ask me for a model number. Let's go with H290, and 3 for educational, and it comes back with 21,840. So H290, and there it is right there, and that's the right answer. So they match. Okay, let's take a look at the code. All right, let's go into the underground. We'll go into Visual Basic. Pretty straightforward. We're going to declare the string, the model that you asked for via input as a string, obviously. The status, whether it's a 1 or a 2, we'll take it in as a string right now, but then we're going to convert it into a number. And then we'll work out the current price, and then we got to worry about the sheet that we're on. Here's how we point to that sheet. Then we unprotect, and again we protect after we're done all this. Okay, 2 prompts, 2 input boxes, and if you forgot, this is how you add the defaults if you want to add them at the back. Okay, here we take our status and convert it into a number because it has quotes when it comes from the input box. Then we do our VLOOKUP in VBA code. All right, and we're searching the price list, and depending on the status, either we're going to move over to column 2 or to column 3. Once we have all that, then we just basically take the model number, feed it into, I named it, instead of the cell, I actually have the name for the cell. This is the name for the status cell, and this is the name for the price cell. And then we print out the results, obviously, on the screen in currency format. There you have a quick little overview. Hopefully you did them. They weren't too complicated. I like that we had to practice using the lookup in pure VBA code as opposed to putting it in the cell. Okay, either way is valid, but it's nice to know how to do both ways. Next up, we zero in on the index program to show you how to improve it and make it a more professional looking program. Now, if you look at the resources for today's lecture, you're going to see 3 files. This is the very, very original one. This is my first version of this, and this is the one that contains sort of like the code inside cells and in pure VBA. And I'll get a better appreciation of all of them in a minute, but this will be like our final version, the best one. Okay, so does this application look familiar? Let me jump to the lookups for a second. So we have this fictitious hardware store that has part numbers, different sizes. After a potential client purchases or tries to purchase a particular part, it'll tell you the price. Okay, and then you obviously enter a quantity and it'll give you the final bill. So if I type in 3003, that's the small. I'll type in large, and I get a new price. If I want a different amount of quantity, it changes it to a different value. Okay, so what we're going to do here is make it a bit more professional looking. How did I know these part numbers? If I didn't cheat and look at the lookup table, I wouldn't know what the part numbers are. So I'd like to put that in a list box, maybe have a little input box pop up for a couple of the other ones, just to show you how we can put in some of these new ideas that we've been learning. So as I mentioned, I have 2 versions of the macro solution to this. This one is more all-encompassing. It has all the ideas in this one, plus some more VBA programming in this. So I'm going to jump straight to this one and put it on your screen. So my biggest concern with the initial version of this was that a potential user probably does not know what part numbers we have in this fictitious hardware store or whatever this is, okay? So it's nice to have them look in a list, and then they can click on it. And as soon as you click on it, it prompts you for some other stuff. So I'll type in, I want the small, and it prompts you for the quantity. So I'll have 60 of those, and then it works out the final bill. Okay, so it's a bit more user-friendly now. So that's the key point. And the second point before I show you the code is that there's 2 versions of this. Here I'm putting the intermediate results on the screen, and then right in the cells I'm putting the index formula, which has the VLOOKUP embedded in it, and it comes out with this answer. The second version here, you just see a number. So where's all the math and everything? Well, it's done purely in VBA code. So I'm going to show you both solutions. Both are acceptable. When you do it in pure VBA code, you don't need any of this intermediate results, but it has more lines in the code. So, It's more one way and less another, and less one way and more another. So it's going to be up to you. Okay, let's look at our list box first. We'll go into design mode, and it looks like it's been protected, so we'll unprotect. Okay, now we have full access to it. Let's go over back to developer. We'll press properties. So I've called this list box list part number, and the fill range is a location in the lookups that goes from G4 to G12, and we might as well sneak over there for a second. G4 to G12, and those are all the numbers that will fill up this list box. Now let's go into the underground and look at the actual pure VBA code. So we're asking for a part number, okay, and we're going to get that through the list box. We're asking for a quantity. We're going to get that through the input box, and the part size we're also going to get through the input box. These things here I'll mention after. These are the other things that we can add to the VBA solution, so it's purely VBA and nothing in the cells, but we'll leave that for later on. Okay, this is our worksheet that we're going to declare this object, and this is where we're going to point to that object. Then, as we've done for the last couple of examples, we'll unprotect the cell so that we can actually change or modify values in them. All right, so the instant we click on the list box, and we could have used double click also, we're going to ask for the size and the quantity. Okay, and we're also going to have to remember, what did I click on in that list box? And that'll be the part number. So now we've got everything we need. And now here we're going to basically put everything back into the cells, into those intermediate locations. So we'll put the part number back into E10, F10, and G10. So once we're at this stage, what we've done is put numbers in here, here, and here. And now the spreadsheet itself is going to do some of the dirty work, okay, right in the code of the cell. Okay, and that will then bring us to this, where we multiply those two numbers together to get the total price. Let's go back here for a second. Now, what if we wanted to do it just in pure VBA and not have those intermediate cells? Well, that's what I've added right here. So you see these three variables now. So let me go back up again. So this is where these things come into being now. Okay, these were the variables I need for the all VBA solution. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do VLOOKUPs on two of the things that I need, all right? And then I'm going to do an index after I know the row and columns that we need. So before I show you this, just to refresh your memory, what basically happens in the lookup? A person types in 202. To me, that's row 2, okay? So I need that number. Person types in large. That's column 3. I need that number. So what we've been doing up until now is having it calculated just right in here. And now we're going to do it in pure code. So the way you say that for the part index, for instance, this number, the row that I want, is I use the VLOOKUP. I pass it the part number. Because it's on a different worksheet, you got to do this. Like initially, I just typed in a range part number, and I kept on getting an error. So I have to preface it, have it as a beginning, worksheets lookup dot range. A little bit different. Took me a while to figure that out, actually. I was just putting this in like we did in a previous example. So you need this other part to say, look in the lookups page or worksheet, and then go to part numbers. And then when you find what you're looking for, go to column number 2 to get the part index. Same thing for the size index, exactly the same. Only this time I'm sending it the part size. And then I'm looking in the size table that I've named. Last part is the index command, okay? And again, we have to go to the worksheet lookups, range, look in the price table, and then here's our two magic numbers, our index, which is like the row we want, and the size index, which is like the column, and that'll give us our magic cost. Then what we do with our cost is times it to the quantity, which we calculated from before, and then take that answer and feed it into H14, which was my second version right here. So that's why you only see a number. You don't see any crazy formulas or calculations like we have in those other cells. So that's an all VB coded solution. One more really cool thing this new version of this index program does is it lets you change the raw prices. So what if I wanted to go in here and say, you know what, part number 303 used to be $12 for medium. Let's make it 14. How would you do that? Well, like I said, if we are going to change this and this medium from 12 to 14, I've got to know where I am. So I've got to know that that's row 6 and then column I. So there's going to have to be some sort of tables that are going to let me pull those out and then create a I6. Okay, so somehow I've got to be able to create an I6, and here's the steps you do it with. So this section in green I've called my price table modification lookup. Okay, so that when I type in one of these numbers, these are the matching rows that that's located in. And when I type in large, medium, or small, it's either column H, I, or J. Okay, so I'm going to be searching now these to get these magic numbers, the I, the J. Okay, so you have to realize that. Now, as I do find these, I put them in kind of a scratch area over here, so that if I do type in small, that's an H. If I do type in 606, that's a 9, and then I'm going to make that H9 and feed it a $7.77. Okay, so there's a table modification area, there's a table lookup area, so there's intermediate things that we have to do to get that final result. And I will also show you a second version of this that does not require a table modification area using pure VBA. Let me give you a quick run before I actually show you. So we'll get out of table design mode. We'll press 202. It'll say the size number. I'll type in small, and I'm going to change it to $6.98. Okay, and just to prove it, there's 202, small, $6.98. All right, time to look at the code. We'll go back into design mode, and we will take the protection off. Double click on here, and we're in the code. All right, here are our key variables for this question. We need a part number and a part size, and then the new price. And later on, when I show you the full VBA way, we need these two variables. Once we get all the information, we're going to create a new table location like that I5 or whatever. So that's what this variable is for. Of course, we need our lookups sheet and our entry sheet, and we'll have them pointing to them. Okay, both are going to be used this time. There's going to be stuff going on in both worksheets. Okay, and we're going to unprotect both sheets and get in there. So next we ask for the part size, because we've already clicked on the part number in the combo box, right? So we don't need to do that. So we ask the part size and the new price, okay, those two prompts, and is a combo box this time, right? So the combo box I called combo part number, and we'll take the text of it, take the val, so we have a pure number. And now here's our hard-coded solution. We take that part size and we feed it into C18. We take that part number, feed it into C19, and we take the new price and feed it into C20. And what we're going to do is we're going to magically join some of this stuff together. Now, to really appreciate what's going on in this line, you're going to have to sneak back to the list lookup page here and see what happens. We just fed these numbers in there, okay? And what's going on here is a lookup, which created an H, and a lookup, which created a 5. And what we want to do is join those two together, H and 5. So this line says, well, first of all, attach the word lookups exclamation mark to say that we're on that particular worksheet. Then take the H and join it to the word lookups, okay? And then take the 5 and join it to the lookups. So you're going to have lookups H5. And then what that's going to do is say, now go to that exact spot in the table. So now we've created a table location, H5, and feed in the new price in there. And that's all it takes. And as promised, here is the version in pure VBA. We take a VLOOKUP on the rows to find out the part number, and a VLOOKUP on the columns to find the size. That gives us our letter and a number. And then we concatenate the word lookups to the size column location, okay, which will be a letter, and then attach that to a number, which will be for the row. And then we do the exact same thing we just did a few minutes ago. We take the new price and feed it into the new table location dot value. So there you have it. A bit more advanced application. We're going to even add more to this next, because what I'm worried about now is, what if a person types in something that doesn't exist or an incorrect amount, like a negative? We're going to deal with that in our next lecture. Thanks for listening. Take care. We'll see you in a little while.